Hello friends. Today I want to share with you a few thoughts from James chapter 4 verses 11 through 17. In this section, James is returning to one of his chosen topics, the misuse of the tongue. First of all, he rebukes those who would judge others by their slanderous talk and by their gossip. Notice verses 11 and 12. He talks about their evil speaking against one another. And he says that this leads to a couple of terrible consequences. The first of which is they breach the royal law of love. A slanderer despises his brother or sister. That's not a demonstration of the kind of love that he's talked about in earlier sections in this letter, that we should love our neighbor as ourselves. And the second terrible consequence of speaking evil against each other, of slandering each other, and of gossiping about each other is usurpation. Is that a word? I'm not sure, but that's a good word. Let's all say it together. Usurpation. The second terrible consequence of this kind of evil speaking is a usurpation of a role that properly belongs to God alone. And what is that role? The role of judge. We can't know a person's motives. We're not in any position to judge another person. And when we slander and gossip and speak evil of other people, we're actually judging them. And we're putting ourselves outside of the law, James says in this passage. And this is a role that properly belongs only to God. And so James says, who are you to judge your neighbor? Well, that's a good question in verse 12. Who am I to judge anyone? I'm not in any position to know a person's motives or to act as if I were God. I'm not. So he talks about evil speaking. And then the second kind of misuse of the tongue that he talks about is the misuse of the tongue that the merchants are guilty of. And what is their misuse of the tongue? It's boasting. Verses 13 through 17. They boast. They brag. Well, what do they boast about? They boast about making plans for the future. And they don't include God in those plans. And they think they have the world by the tail or by the neck. And they know what tomorrow, they're going to go here and they're going to go there and they're going to do this and they're going to do that. And they boast and brag about themselves. And James says you should not to do that. Why? I want to remind you, James says, that life hangs by a fragile thread that may snap without warning. What is your life, he says? It's a mist that's here for a moment, but soon dissipates into the air. And then he reminds that a person's life is not within his or her power to control. Well, this is a heavy thought. What you ought to say, he says, is, if the Lord wills, we'll do this or that. You don't have full control of your life. You don't know what's going to happen in the future. And then, well, what he's saying here is that God has a say in what happens. How much of a say does God have? How much control does God have? I don't know. But God has some control in the future, over the future. So you ought not to arrogantly say, I'm going to go here and I'm going to go there and I'm going to do this. You don't have that kind of control over your life. And then he closes this section with what was probably a well-known proverb or aphorism. Anyone who knows to do the right thing and doesn't do it, he sins. How like James to focus on doing. Do the right thing. That is a repeated thought or topic in the letter of James. All right, let's talk about application. Number one, beware of evil speaking against others. Beware of gossip. Beware of slander. Don't put yourself in the position of judge over others. We all probably need to hear that. Number two, make your plans, but include God in them. And remember that so much is out of your control. There's no place then for pride and arrogance. So much is out of your control. How much control does God have in a person's life? How much control does he have in my life? I don't know. But this verse and this kind of thinking should certainly humble us and put us in our place, remind us of our place, and free us from all kind of arrogance and pride. And then number 3, application. James reminds us of the brevity of life, the transitory nature of life. We are here one brief moment, and then we're gone. Now, we can complain about this. We can gripe about it. We can bemoan the fact that life is so short and that the end could come at any moment. Or we can get after it and make the most of every day and make the most of every minute. And we're going to choose the latter, aren't we? It's a good reminder that life is brief, and it encourages us to pack every minute with what is most important. All right, preview of chapter 5, verses 1 through 6. James is going to condemn the rich farmers. He's going to place judgment upon them. All right. Oh, before I go, I want to show you something. I've started some seeds, some wildflower seeds, and this is so exciting. I know my mom will enjoy this. So let me see if I can show you what's happening to my seeds, if you don't mind. All right, let's see if I can manage this camera. Here we go. Yeah, there we go. Is that not cool or what? Now those are wildflowers, and I've got some purple coneflowers that are trying to come up here, and I've got some black-eyed Susans over here that you can't see. Just a minute. Let me remove this cover. I'm sorry about this quality of this video, not so good. See, I've got one lone black-eyed Susan trying to come up there on the left, and I've got some others right there. So those germinate low. But anyway, isn't that cool? I'm telling you, I'm just enjoying watching these plants grow from seed so much. And hey, it reminds me of the power of God and the laws of nature that He's put into practice. What a wonderful God we serve. And what a beautiful day this is. Well, I've got to go. Thanks for spending some time with me in my garden. I'll see you in a few days. Bye-bye.